Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Carolyn and this is part 2 of my altered book that I am starting. So I'm creating a book of curiosities. So I have like a lot of ideas. I'm really excited about this project, and if you have not seen part 1, I have a step-by-step of what I have done so far with the book. So I've just started with the cover, and this is step 2 where I'm going to put some three-dimensional interest to the front cover of the book. So what I've got here is an ice mold, and I found this at the Dollar Tree, and so it's a skeleton. We've got a skull, we've got some ribs here, we've got the hands, we've got the feet, some bones for his arms and legs. Um, I may not use all of the pieces, but what I thought I would do is use some hot glue for the molds here. So I've got this on high. So I would say you want to use a high temperature because I have tried this before, and if you're not fast enough, it can harden pretty quick. And if it's not hot, the temperature is not high enough, it can harden pretty quick, leave lumps, and just not look very good. So hopefully I've got this heating up long enough. So I'm not going to fill these molds up like completely full because I want it to have some dimension, but I don't want it to stick out too far. Let's see, that was about 5 pumps, 5 squeezes of the trigger for the skull. And let's do, sorry about the shaking, it's about 5 squeezes for the hand. Okay, so now you can see that the hot glue has dried. It's went from clear to a whitish milky color. So I'm going to pop these out and see what they look like. And some of these I'm going to have to redo because I didn't put enough. I can tell. This one right here, I didn't put enough glue. All right, so he's still, see if you can see that. I know the lighting is kind of, but there's the skull. Should glue down pretty good. All right, so there's a hand. The hand turned out really well, so you can really see the dimension in the hand. The arm and leg bones look like, yeah, so this turned out good. Okay, so I found another mold here. I'd also gotten this from the Dollar Tree last year, and I like these skulls better than what came with the set there that has the rest of the body parts. So I'm going to go ahead and create some skulls, make some molds. Same process as before, and I'll show you what those look like, but I really think these will turn out better than that one there, so I will be back once I have those done. Let those dry until, it turns white from clear to like a white color. Okay, so now I've got all of my pieces made, and I made a couple, well, I made another one of these skulls from this one, and I made 2 from this mold, and I'm actually thinking the skull from the black mold is going to work out better. So I'm going to paint both of them and we'll see. So the next thing I'm going to do so that I can paint them is put a coat of gesso on all of these pieces. So that way I can get some detail painted on them. And I think 1 coat maybe will be good enough. So I'll paint the fronts of them and let the fronts dry, flip them over, and put a thin coat of gesso on the other side, once that's dry. And then we'll come back and I'll show you what else I'll do to them. Okay, so I've got all of my molds layered with, well, I've got 3 layers of gesso on each piece, just so that I can make sure that the paint sticks to the glue, the hot glue. I didn't do the backs. I was going to do the backs, but you're not going to see the backs anyway, and I'm going to be gluing them to the cover. So there was no point in gessoing the back. So I started painting them, and I don't want them so stark white, so I'm gonna paint them just using a regular acrylic paint, and this one is the Bria Reese Heavy Body Acrylic Unbleached Titanium. So I just want an off-white color. I was gonna do a mixture because there's a pale yellow, but I think this unbleached titanium is going to be just right for this. So I am just going to put probably just one coat of this on each piece. Okay, so now I have 2 coats of the off-white on these pieces, which was called Unbleached Titanium. So now I'm going to bring out the details by putting a darker acrylic paint over it and kind of wiping it off so that the dark paint is kind of stuck in the crevices. So I have here a burnt umber, just any acrylic paint should do. And I'll just put it out here. And I'm just going to use one of these craft sponges for this. And I'm going to start with the skull. And I'm just going to go ahead and put some of this paint. And it's not going to be perfect here. And of course my hands are going to be covered in paint, which is fine with me. So see if I can get it in all the crevices. So there is that, and then I've got a slightly damp paper towel, and I'm going to use it to wipe off the excess burnt umber. And see what's left over. Look, now you can see the crack in the skull much better. And the teeth you can see a lot better. So you can go over this a couple times if you want. Just get it however you want it, as dark as you want it. I think. So there's that one compared to this guy here. So now you can see that the details are coming out. It looks dirty and grungy, and that is what I want. It looks pretty cool. And let's do, I don't know if I want to do a little more to the eye sockets. Maybe leave them a little darker. Okay, so I'm going to just continue this process with the rest, and that should complete the embellishments for the cover, and I will be back once I have all those pieces done. Okay, so it didn't take very long for those pieces to dry. I have like all of them distressed, and I still think that this skull here looks better than the one skull that came with the molds that had all of these other pieces. What I've done, I've just positioned everything where I want them to be, and I'm just going to leave it like this. So we'll just have the head, the center section, and the hands. So I've got the hands overlapping, and I'm going to use E6000 to put these down. So these should stay. Just put like a thin layer of E6000 down, and this should secure these pieces quite well. And just set it down right here, and I'll wait for that to dry. So I've got okay, so now I have this I'm going to use as kind of an opener for the book. So this is just a drawer knob or drawer pull that I got on clearance. That's a while back. If you guys watch my Hobby Lobby clearance hauls, I think I picked a couple of these up just for this purpose to use for a junk journal or an altered book. So it's nice and heavy, and I'm just going to glue that on as well with E6000. I think it goes well with the patina of the background here. So I'm just going to eyeball where I want it. So I'll just go ahead and put the E6000 here, and I'm not going to cover the holes. So I'll just kind of put it approximately in the middle. Like that. I don't want the knob to stick out too far at this knocker part. So there is that, and I had my husband find me some screws. So here are some screws, and I took my finger and just took some black acrylic paint, just put a coat of acrylic paint on, and then once that dried, actually I didn't even let it dry, and just took my finger and put another coat of like a gray acrylic paint just to dull the screw and you know, dull the shininess of the screw and have it blend into this. And he actually, I don't know how, but he cut the ends of the screw, the back, because I'm not really going to screw this in. I'm just going to glue these down and just give the illusion that these are screwed in. And use E6000 for that as well. So I'm just going to place those where the screw holes are carefully. So there are those. So set those screws down in there, just kind of like they're actually screwed into the book, but they're not really. They're just glued down in there. It actually looks pretty good, blends right in quite well. So just gonna let all of this dry. So this is still drying. I've also got some book corners here. So this is just some Tim Holtz metal book corners, and this has got a silver, they're silver, and they have a scroll design here, so I thought those would work well for the corners of the book. And I'll just take a tool to squeeze these down. Hopefully I do this right. Just a little bit in just some of this corner here, like that. And we place that on the corner, just like that. Place it flush, and I think, oh my goodness, I may be doing this totally wrong and you will be screaming at me. How do I squeeze that down? I am not sure. I'll just use my fingers. There we go. I'm just using my fingers to squeeze if you're not strong enough. Hopefully you're strong enough to do that. Yep. I'm not that strong, so my fingers are not that strong, so if I can do it, if you guys don't have issues with arthritis or anything, you should be able to do this okay. Okay, so everything, it has been dried. It's been 24 hours. The handle's on there really well. It's not going anywhere. This looks really cool. I mean, you can't even tell that that was glue gun, that was made with glue gun and an ice cube. Dollar Tree ice cube trays. It's so cool. So what I did off camera, I redid the spine. So all I did was just cover the spine with 6 or 7 layers of cheesecloth. And the reason why is because I just didn't like the bumpiness of all the patch job that I did with the pieces of fabric that I had glued on here. So I wanted it more of a one piece without the lumps, and I think this gives it a good texture with this cheesecloth. All I did was glue each layer down with some Mod Podge, and I didn't let it dry in between each layer. I just laid them all on top of each other, just put plenty of Mod Podge on top of each layer, and I'm going to trim off the excess. I'll trim off this excess, trim off some of this excess. I am going to paint this black, so I'm just going to use black acrylic paint and maybe distress it a little bit, and I'll show you what that looks like after I'm done with it. So the next thing I want to do, and probably the last thing that I do with this, is I want to make this skeleton look like he's more part of the cover, because right now I think that he looks like he's just placed on top, you know, so he's just sitting on top like just an afterthought. So I want it to feel like he is actually part of the book, embedded in the cover. So I have this texture paint that I guess it's going to look like sand when you're done with it, and I had found this a while back, probably last year in a Hobby Lobby clearance haul. Some of you guys might have seen that, so I haven't used it yet, and that's what I'm going to use it for. I'm going to take this and I am going to put it up against, all around and up against my skeleton pieces and make it look like he's sticking out of dirt or sand. So I'll let this dry. I think this is going to dry white, and I'll have to, you know, paint it. Okay, so I have the spine all painted with black acrylic paint. Now, if any of you have ever painted cheesecloths, which I have not, even with the several layers of Mod Podge, the cheesecloth is very absorbent, so I found that the easiest way to get the acrylic paint to spread well is to water it down with a little bit of water. And also, when I brushed the acrylic paint on with my big paintbrush, I also sprayed with my, just have a little water bottle here, water sprayer, and just as I was painting over it with the just plain black acrylic paint, spraying it with water, and it helped to distribute that paint over the cloth much easier. So here is kind of a close-up look of that spine. So I haven't like completely covered it in black. I've left some of the brownish colors show through, so then you've got some texture there, and then you've got your kind of tannish color that makes it look aged, and also matches the color of her skeleton. And it's still drying, so that's why I have it propped on this little, so I just have it propped on this little book here so that it doesn't touch. And I'm trying to straighten this out. My book's kind of falling apart there in the back, but we'll fix that. So my texture paint is now dry. It took almost a day. So the instructions said it would take about 2 hours to dry, but that depends on how thick you put it on. So like these very edges right here took a couple hours, but that was like a thinner application on the edges. And then the closer I got to the skeleton itself, I piled it up around the skeleton and got a lot more thickness around the hands and underneath the hands. So it dried nicely. So it actually left some cracking there, which is really cool. And a little bit, you can kind of see a little bit of a texture. You can't really on the camera here, but there is a little bit of a sandy texture and some cracking there. So I'm going to paint this the same technique that I did the skeleton, actually, so in the same color. So this is again the titanium, unbleached titanium, which is like a beige or a light tan color. So that will be my base color. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a layer of that base color carefully over my texture paste. So I'll go ahead and do that and then let that dry. And then once that's done, I'll be back with the next step. Okay, that didn't take long to dry at all. So it's not even been, I don't know, maybe a few minutes, half hour, 15 minutes, I'm not sure. So my next thing is that I'll take my burnt umber acrylic paint again and we'll distress the sand. So I'll just put some burnt umber over here, and I'm going to use my smaller brush just to get into. I'll try to do this a little quickly here, so maybe I'll work on it in sections. So I'll put the burnt umber on here and then wipe it away with a paper towel, and it's not a damp paper towel, it's just a regular paper towel, dry. Why don't I come back? I'm going to let this dry more completely and then I'll finish this part up, and then I may do just a little bit more detail on this and then we should be done with this. Okay, so I've got all of this sand distressed. So we have the burnt umber in there, you know, just painted on there, wiped off, and I concentrated more of the burnt umber around the perimeter of the skeleton areas. And I think it looks really neat. With the lighting in here, it looks like this thing's sticking up, like this sand or dirt part is sticking up a lot more than it really is in person. But the next and final thing I'm going to do with this cover is I just have a mixture of black and burnt umber, and I've kind of diluted it a little bit with just a spritz of water over here in the corner. So it's kind of half burnt umber and half black. It's mostly black. And I'm just putting a little bit of that dark color on the edge, around the edge of this like dirt area, just to make it look like it's blended in more with the book, like it's part of the book. And you can't really, like I said, on camera you can't really tell. It looks like it's sticking out a lot more than it really is, like it's not really part of the book. But as I add this detail in, this darkness on the edges, to where it's matching more of the darkness of this area of the book here, it looks more like the dirt belongs. And I'll just go ahead and end this here because you get the idea. And I'll just continue to work on this, but this is it pretty much, and I am really happy with it. I think it's super cool. I love the metal effect. I really like the sand, the dirt effect. I think it's really cool. Um, I've got my metal corners here. Got the metal drawer pull. Yeah, all of this. Oh, and I love the background technique that I did for this, and this is pretty awesome. So I'm going to say this is pretty much done outside of just touching the edges up like I showed you, just to get it to blend in a little bit. And I will be back with more because I'm not done with this. Like, I think this is good by itself. Like, you could sit this up on a book, whatever you call those things, book holder, and just use it as decor by itself, and it would be just great that way. But I'm actually going to use this as a journal. So I will be working on this, and it probably isn't going to be done like all in October. This is going to be like just a continual thing. So as I work on it, because I have a lot of ideas of what I want to do with the inside, I will be recording that so you guys can see what I do with it. And I really appreciate you guys' patience, and I hope that you guys got some good ideas with what you can do with a book where you can alter the cover. And I will talk to you again or see you again in the next video. Thank you for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I could use some more subscribers. And if you like the video, thumbs up, leave a comment. And thank you again for watching. Bye-bye, guys.